small number of billionaires and millionaires have more wealth hoarded in their hands than the majority of
Uhuru. Welcome to this very, very important and urgent webinar hosted by the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, South Africa's Unfinished Revolution, the role of white people in solidarity with the African working class. Let us know in the chat where you are tuning in from. We know we have people joining us today from throughout the United States, from Europe, including in Marseille, France, in Germany, as well as in South Africa. So please let us know so we can shout you out. Let us know on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you are watching from, where you are joining us from in the comments. And please share this video. I want to say that before we even get started, that the message that you are about to hear from the front lines of the struggle in South Africa or Occupied Azania is one that must be heard by millions. So we have to do what we can right now to share this video, post it to groups, do what you can to get this this broadcast out there to as many people as you possibly can. So it's an honor to MC this event today. My name is Jesse Neville. I am a proud member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the cadre organization of white people formed and led by the African People's Socialist Party to extend the struggle for African liberation into the white colonizer population. And Uhuru is the Swahili word that means freedom. So we say Uhuru, and we stand in solidarity with the African resistance that is sweeping South Africa right now and the entire world. And our mass organization, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, who's sponsoring this event today, was formed to go into the masses of the white population and organize other white people like ourselves to stand in genuine solidarity with the African community's struggle for self-determination, liberation, and reparations as a revolutionary demand. So it is my tremendous honor to be a member of this organization, to be under the leadership of the founder and leader of the worldwide anti-colonial revolutionary struggle, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. We salute the chairman for his relentless fight and determination over the past more than 50 years to complete the African Revolution and win freedom, power, and genuine independence for African people. I also extend my deepest salute to Onazene Yeshitela, the deputy chair of the African People's Socialist Party, for her profound leadership of the worldwide movement for African liberation, the anti-colonial struggle for African people to take back their resources. And salute to all of the leaders and members of the African People's Socialist Party, including our incredible speakers today, Luwezi Kinshasa, the Secretary General of the African Socialist International, who was born in Congo and has lived in exile in the UK for many years, where he has led the party's work to consolidate the organizational presence of the African People's Socialist Party worldwide, and Tafarie Mugeri, who joins us live from South Africa, where he leads the APSC Occupied Azania, and where he also functions as the director of organization of the entire African continent for the building of the African People's Socialist Party, and who, along with other party members, has been in the thick of struggle, fighting to arm the African masses with the revolutionary organization, science, and strategy necessary for total liberation. We will also be hearing from Penny Hess, who is the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee and has been working under the leadership of the chairman and the African People's Socialist Party since 1976 for 45 years to build the organization of white solidarity with Black power and reparations to African people. Chairwoman Penny Hess is also the author of the book, Overturning the Culture of Violence, and we're very honored to have Chairwoman Penny speaking to us today about why white people, not only in South Africa, but everywhere, must unite with the struggle of African people for reparations and self-determination. And we will also be honored to hear from Julie Eccles, who also joins us from South Africa and will be speaking to us as well about why she believes that white people must be in solidarity with the African People's Socialist Party and with the anti-colonial struggle for African liberation. So as we have seen in the news recently, this event is being held in response to the generalized resistance that has swept all throughout the provinces of South Africa on the part of the African working class, and the brutal, vicious response by the neo-colonial ANC government and the military and white mercenaries who have murdered to date over 72 African people since the uprisings began. Footage of the resource-starved, colonized African people taking back what rightfully belongs to them have been criminalized in the bourgeois media, with the African workers vilified as quote-unquote looters. In this event today, our goal is to expose who the real looters in South Africa are, and how nearly 3 decades after the end of direct white colonial rule in the form of the apartheid regime, the African liberation struggle to destroy colonialism and neo-colonialism is not over. We will call on white people to get organized in solidarity with the African Revolution by joining the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and fighting for reparations to African people, including in Occupied Azania or South Africa. So before we hear from our speakers today, we would like to show a 2-minute video of the president of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement in Occupied Azania, Zakele, President Zakele, who's also a member of the party, who is speaking from the front lines of the struggle earlier this week. And when we come back, I will introduce our first speaker for this incredible event. So here is a video of Impedum President in Occupied Azania, Zakele.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Yeah. My name is Zakenya Mkonza Lapinari. I'm giving updates. As you can see, the streets are clear. The cars are moving. After last night, when the African workers also joined the Zuma, the Free Zuma campaign. So as Impitam, we like to say that this is it's no longer about the Zuma. This thing is about the more social ills lala occupied Azania. So the people are not working. There's no development. White people own like more than 87% of our land. So that's why so we're not going to call them Africa Maluta because this is Africa. The imperialists are looting Africa. As you can see, they are taking the African brothers from Somali shops and the shop are closed. So that's what is happening in Pinari. The mall is safe. The police went to protect the capitalists, and that's how you can see who which interest they put them to gain something. So SMP Dam for the interest of the African working class. So we're saying the African working class must join the Impit Dam, must join an Impit Dam song around Umalanga, get organized. So those type of things, when they get us organized so we can take the land. That's what Impit Dam is all about. We are organizing. Spita bosses sinabu put joining Impit Dam. Slapinari, as you can see. The police have arrived. Yeah. So there are no shops around. Yeah, that's what's up. I'm with the president of Pinari Boyo. So yeah, we'll check what's going to happen after this. But the revolution is coming. Let's get ready. Sure. Get organized. Uhuru.
Salute to President Zakele and to the African People's Socialist Party fighting on the ground in the struggle of South Africa. And we want to, again, welcome everybody who's joining us. We have people joining us from Macon, Georgia, from Philadelphia, from Oakland, California, from Hillcrest, which is a town in the KwaZulu-Natal province in South Africa, from St. Petersburg, Florida, from Lakeland, from Marseille, from Pinellas Park, and from many other places, from Mesa, Arizona, from Gainesville, Florida. Thank you to everybody who's joining us today. Don't stop sharing this event. Share it everywhere you can to get the word out about this urgent call for solidarity with the African revolution that is unfolding today in South Africa. And without any further ado, it is my great honor to bring up our first speaker, the Director of Organization for the Africa region of the African People's Socialist Party and the chair of the Occupied Azania African People's Socialist Party. Please join me and thank you and salute to Director Tafarie Mugeri Uhuru. Tafarie.
Yeah, Uhuru, Comrade Jesse. I'd like to salute just the program organized by the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And as it has been said, I am Tafarie Mugeri, and I am based here in Occupied Azania, South Africa. And I'm the chair of the African People's Socialist Party, Occupied Azania, as well as the Director of Organization for the African Socialist International Africa region. And I firstly want to salute my leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who is the leader and founder of the Uhuru movement and the APSP, as well as the person responsible for the political theory of African internationalism, which informs our practice and our entire politics. And I want to salute SG Luwezi, Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa, who is my direct leadership, as well as the Deputy Chair Onazine Yeshitela, and also the entire leadership central committee of the APSP. And I just want to salute everyone who is on here, all the revolutionaries, all the freedom fighters, and everyone on the program, Comrade Julie and Comrade Jesse, Che Jesse, as well as Chairwoman Penny Hess. So, comrades, I want to begin from the fact that I am a member of a revolutionary party. The African People's Socialist Party is a revolutionary party, and we regard ourselves as the vanguard of the international African revolution. And we believe that there is no revolution that can occur without the intervention, the leadership of an advanced sector, of a vanguard informed by a revolutionary theory. So that's why we are so appreciative of Chairman Omali Ishtela, having realized the fact that when in the 60s, when the revolution, the Black Revolution of the 1960s was destroyed, he went out to build a revolutionary party that will have as a mission to complete that revolution, and considered everything based on a scientific analysis of what is required for us to have a successful revolution, because we are not struggling for the sake of struggling. I'm not here as a member just because I want to talk, or just to belong somewhere. I'm here because I am one to the politic that says African people, we have to organize ourselves in order for us to achieve complete victory. And also, as an African who is here in Occupied Azania, I'm an African. I'm not a South African. South Africa was imposed on me. It was born through the attack on Africa. The same way that you have Africans all over this continent, and they are defined by all sorts of names that are imposed on us. Someone is a Congolese, the other person is a Nigerian, and so forth. So we're saying that all Black people, all African people are Africans wherever you are, including the United States, the America, South America, as well as in Europe and everywhere else. We are Africans, and wherever we are colonized. And that's one thing that we have to recognize about our condition and what we are confronted with, for us to be able to successfully overturn it. So I'm going to respond to report or to present on what's been happening in South Africa, because in the last couple of days, the past week, I'm sure all over the world you saw on the news people on the streets, burning the streets, getting into shopping complexes, malls, and shops, and looting, as they define it, like taking everything within the shops, damaging even some of the property. I saw on yesterday Cyril Ramaphosa, who is the president of this neo-colonial settler state called South Africa. He was live and he reported on the amount of damage, and they talked about something like billions of or close to 20 billions, or even over a billion rands, or even over that they say has been lost. And actually we asked the question of saying, when you say it has been lost, what do you mean it has been lost? Who lost it? So when you talk about something being lost, then we ask the question of who is it that lost something, and which begs the question of ownership. African people right now, we are a conquered nation. We are colonized. We are dispossessed. We don't own. We don't have any control over the things that we need over here on the continent. That's why they talk about losing stuff, because African people went into the shops. They went into the African working class, bomb rushed all the sometimes even banks or even factories, and they call that looting and so forth. But then we saying that like everywhere, I've seen on social media a lot of people coming out talking about the real looting started in 1652. And this just speaks to the history of South Africa. South Africa has its foundation from that 1652, when Jan van Riebeeck established a station there for the settlers, for the colonizers from the Netherlands. And since then, African people have not known peace. That's why we have launched a campaign here in Occupied Azania known as the Bread, Peace, and Black Power, in response to the attack that the African working class have received in the past week, and it keeps on being intensified, as we saw from the presentation by Cyril Ramaphosa, talking about the African the people as calling us criminals and also of names, but he doesn't speak to why African people would even act in this way, or the conditions of Africans that that we live with on a daily and consistent basis. So I just want to briefly talk about what is happening in terms of what we are confronted with here in Occupied Azania. The fact of the matter is South Africa is a settler colony. That's what it is. South Africa is a settler colony, which means that colonizers from elsewhere, they came here and they established themselves as a community and established a state and referred even spiritually to this land as their own. They say that as ons land, this is our land. That's what they say, right? So it's a settler colony, but at the same time, it's a settler colony which is characterized by a state which is a neo-colonial state. And we say neo-colonialism is white power in blackface. That's what it is, white power in blackface. So when we see the ANC in government, but yet at the same time, you have hundreds of African people dying on the streets. Like now with this whole turmoil that has been happening, they have reported, Ramaphosa on yesterday reported that 212 people have died from this whole thing. But then we say South Africa killed those people, because he mentions those figures to suggest, that it's the people that are suffering that are responsible for all this death. So we're saying that the system that we live under is responsible for us to even have have to go out there and be able to butcher one another sometimes, when that's the only way for us to find a way through somehow. But then we're saying that the only way for us to be able to find a way forward here is through a revolution. That's something that has not happened yet in Occupied Azania in South Africa. We have not experienced a revolution. The revolution was sabotaged, was crushed, as the chairman has said, in the 60s. And we talk about 1994 here, when the ANC took power. That was not a revolution. Maybe it was a Negro or petty bourgeois revolution, but it's not a revolution because it did not transform the system. It did not abolish, it did not destroy the settler colonial state. It did not take the wealth from the colonizers and give it back to the colonized, who are the first victims of this whole society that has been constructed, that is called South Africa, or some kind of rainbow nation. So we're saying we have not experienced a revolution. But for us to be able to experience a revolution, we have to be organized, because what we saw with people getting into the shops, that was a spontaneous reaction. Just, like a lot of people, they know that what they're doing. I know I go into a shop because I need the stuff that's in the shops there. But then as soon as I'm done, and then these neo-colonialists come, they confront me, they ask me what was I doing, and then I can't even explain it, because we don't have our own philosophy. So we, as the African People's Socialist Party, Occupied Azania, we have launched this campaign, and we are going to go to be on the street. We have already started, and we're giving the people the confidence that we have to be able to see the world through our own lenses, from our own experience, from our own standpoint as the victims of this whole social system, because the oppressor and the oppressed cannot have the same philosophy. You cannot be oppressing me and you require my blood, and then at the same time, you have an explanation for that's in my best interest of why we are where we are right now. So we're saying that the African working class, we must have our own philosophy, and that philosophy is African internationalism. It explains this whole social system, how it was founded, and also how it's maintained, what it takes for the social system to be maintained, and what it's going to take for the social system to be destroyed, because it has to be destroyed. And I just want to say that South Africa belongs in that social system. Nigeria belongs in that social system. The United States of America belongs in that social system. Chairman Omali Shitela says that capitalism was born as a global economy. It was not born as something in Europe that was going to be exported to us, and then we have to catch up and so forth. It was born through the process of attacking Africa, looting our resources, that's the real looting our resources, enslaving us and forcing us to work for nothing, absolutely nothing. So we are the backbone of this social system. You look at the factories in South Africa, right? South Africa is industrialized as far as Africa is concerned. And then you have Africans coming from all over. And then when we get here, we are referred to as foreigners. We are here to take our jobs and all this kind of thing that South Africa suggests to us that we are not the same people, or someone is here at the expense of the other person. But the person who was originally here at the expense of another is the colonizer at the expense of the colonized, who are the African people. So we're saying that South Africa is part of that whole social system. So when we fight here to overturn South Africa, we know that we have our comrades in the USA, our comrades in West Africa, and even in Europe who are fighting the same struggle. And that's how we guarantee victory, because there will never be a South African revolution. Now, yeah, please let me know, like, if I'm almost towards the lapsing of my time. So I just want to be able to read something here, comrades, from the RNDP. We have a document that is called the Revolutionary National Democratic Program. So that's what we take on the ground to the people, because we're not talking like abstract stuff here. We're talking about solutions for the problems that we're confronted with. And the main problem that we're confronted with is that we are dominated people, we are dispossessed, we don't have what we need, in our own hands. We are colonized in other ways. So the RNDP is our platform. It sums up the interests, the needs, and the demands of the people, of the African working class. Okay, I just want to be able to get to this document here. So we're speaking of state power, right? State power. South Africa expresses itself in terms of the state. That's why Ramaphosa can go out there and speak about the army, deploying the army. He can go out there and speak about the police, that we don't have enough police capacity. We have to call like 25,000 soldiers to come and assist. And they're talking about now already 2,500, 2,500 people who have been jailed from these whole riots. 2,500 people have been there. And then Ramaphosa said that everything has to be put aside for those people to be dealt with. That's the African working class. And if the majority of people, a lot of people, everyone that got a chance to go into the stores did that, is he suggesting that every worker that's hungry, that's poor, is a criminal and they have to be dealt with? So we're talking here about state power. They're able to do that because they have state power. And the South African state was consolidated like in the process of attacking Africa, or negating our humanity, negating our rights. So we fighting to destroy the settler colonial state, something that the ANC did not do in 1994. It did not destroy the settler colonial state. It maintained it. They nearly inherited it, adopted it, modified it, but it's the same thing. It's meant for one class of people to suppress and oppress the other class of people using force. That's what we're talking about right now. But we want our own state power. And the reason we want our own state power is because that's how we're going to make sure that we can establish new relationships in society, whereby there's no colonizer and there's no colonized. We're going to establish new relationships, but we have to fight those whose material interests are opposed to this new society being constructed. We do that by having our own power. So I'm going to read here briefly from the RNDP, where it speaks about state power. And we say, we call on African people around the world to participate in or support the struggle for the seizure of state power in Africa from the clutches of neo-colonial servants of imperialism that have acceded power and the national resources of Africa to foreign corporations and imperialist countries. Then it says, we demand African community control of the police in our oppressed and exploited communities in the domestic colonies of North and South America, the Caribbean, Europe, as well as here in Africa. And then it says, as a serious component of the struggle to achieve state power, because that's what we want state power. we call on Africans throughout the world to unite with the ASI, the African Socialist International, established international tribunal founded in 1982 as the first session of the International Tribunal on Reparations for African People in the US. The International Tribunal is the basis of our incipient revolutionary national democratic state power, wherein Africans will conduct our own trials and hearings in the quest for justice within our colonized communities and achieve justice in issues between Africans in the US and the imperialist state and citizens. You know, so we're talking about South Africa. South Africa, as African people here, we are not citizens. So we cannot even talk about having a truth and reconciliation commission whereby you're gonna get the settlers coming and saying, yeah, I did this, and you know, I was doing it because apartheid made me to do this and so forth. And then you atone for your sins and then you are forgiven, then go and enjoy the loot, you know, the real loot, go and enjoy the loot. So we're not talking about that. We're saying that African people, the relationship we have with white people here is not a relationship based on one group of people not liking the other group of people. You know, so we're not fighting for white people to like us or even Indians to like us, because right now we're hearing about Indians in Phoenix that the Indian community is attacking and butchering African people there, and then say, oh, we always knew it, that Indian people don't like us. Now we're saying that African people, the whole system that even an Indian can open a shop or something like that or exploit African people, that system was born through the attack on Africa by Europe and transformed the entire world, established like a whole economy whereby all human beings are locked up within this economy, so that even when you have China, for example, China cannot be China a success without Africa being drained of its resources, or it cannot even challenge the United States effectively without engaging in this whole social system, unless if colonized people all over the world are able to fight against the imperialists. You know, so, and then I just want to be able to continue to read just a few points here. It says, we demand African community control of schools, police, and all the institutions of coercive colonial state power that wreak perennial havoc within our colonized communities. We demand the immediate withdrawal of the terroristic police and military troops from the African community and their replacement with the African Liberation Force, who struggles in defense of our community against our oppressors. So we see now we're talking about state power, and then because the state power that we are experiencing in South Africa is a state power of the colonized. So when you have Jacob Zuma, for example, he's not fighting for that state power to be destroyed. He was the president of South Africa for 9 years, and he served. He made a pledge to advance, to protect the Constitution of South Africa that was drafted at the expense of African people as a compromise between the petty bourgeoisie of the ANC and the other parties, with the Nationalist Party and imperialism in general. That was a compromise that was made at the expense of the African working class. You know, so Zuma is not a revolutionary, because what is a revolutionary? A revolutionary is someone who's there to transform society, to destroy the current system so the new system can be established. You cannot call someone like Zuma that kind of thing. So one thing that has to be fought for here in Occupied Azania is for us to be able to say, we have, the African working class have our own distinct interests, and we can identify those interests. We can articulate our interests. This is the thing that is missing in our communities. We're missing organization, and we're missing an articulation of our own interests, so that even if I know that I am feeling cold right now, it's cold, and there's no electricity in my community, I can't articulate that in such a way that there is a science behind it. I can even explain my experience from the beginning to the end, so that I know that this is how I must struggle within the society for me to able to achieve what I need for me to be able to acquire the things that I need as a human being. So that's the thing that we're missing. And we're saying that African People's Socialist Party, when we come, we don't come to support one faction of the ANC over the other. We are not with the Ramaphosa faction or with the so-called radical economic transformation, the other faction of Jacob Zuma, that cannot even be explained. You go to someone and you ask them, what is this radical economic transformation? And there is no explanation for the radical economic transformation. But we're saying there is a political theory that explains the world, as it is even. And we call that political theory African internationalism. That's what we want to take to the African community, not only to the African community, but to the settler white community. So those within the white community that recognize the fact that there is something wrong in the society. Why is it that African people, they work for us, they wake up every morning earlier than we do, but at the same time, when you go to their communities, it's trash, waste everywhere. When you go to their communities, it's poverty everywhere. Why is it? So if you have white people that can look at the world objectively, they can get African internationalism. They can be able to be revolutionaries. That's the requirement right now. The requirement is for people to be revolutionaries, because this system is not even viable for anyone. It's not viable for anyone. It's crisis everywhere. It's depression in the white community. It's depression in the African community. It's drugs everywhere. It's conflicts everywhere. Within the families, it's conflict. You go within the workplace, it's conflict. You go within the society in general, it's conflict. And then we always have to go back and forth talking about changing the consciousness of people without wanting to change the material conditions that's responsible for that kind of consciousness called racism or anti-black this and so forth. We're talking about a social system, a real thing that's there. We're talking about the guns. We're talking about we're talking about institutions here. We're talking about the power that makes you to act in a way that they desire for you to act. Like even now, if I want to, I feel like I'm a very spiritual person. I want to go somewhere and establish my own thing. I have to go to the state. If the state denies me that right, I cannot be able to do that. So we're saying African people, there's no way we can get justice within this system. We never get justice within this system. If we are going to build, to be free, we're going to have to organize ourselves. That's why we are building in branches. The International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, we're building branches in Forgeville, in the Val, in Mpumalanga, and we're advancing, the movement all over the settler colony, and also in Swaziland, because African people in Swaziland and African people in South Africa are one. In West Africa, Sierra Leone, Ghana, East Africa, in Uganda, in Kenya, African people all over the world, unified, and then we can unite with other colonized people, and the colonizer can be able to commit national suicide and abandon the interests of the colonizer that requires the looting, the sucking of the blood of the children in Congo, in African mothers and fathers in the mines of South Africa. The whole system that is that's able to have a technology that can create comfort for European people at the expense of African people, at the expense of other colonized people. So we're saying this whole system must go. The whole system must go. And African people, we are owed reparations. We don't owe South Africa for what has happened this week. That 16 billion that they're referring to that has been lost in KZN, we don't owe. That's nothing compared to what this system owes us. We know reparations are still due to African people. That 36,000 rands that was given to a handful of people in the 90s from that TRC is nothing. South Africa owes us its very existence. For South Africa, as long as South Africa exists, it owes us. It has to pay us with its life, and it has to pay us for everything that it has taken from us as African workers. We live in the townships. And we have all sorts of problems that are creating problems even within, like just in every sphere of life, you have problems, and all these problems we're saying they are colonial problems. It's colonialism. That's the foundation. That's the basic thing that we are dealing with. So we are not confused about the whole thing that is happening here in Occupied Azania. So right now, already Ramaphosa, he's talking about the deployment of more soldiers, and he's encouraging people to go to the malls and clean up. But then the townships have been having all this filth for years, but he never talked about us cleaning up our communities before until today. And he never talked about the health conditions having to be an issue. That's why they were able to compromise over 100, mental illness patients, in those hospitals. They were able to compromise them because they're not concerned about the health of African people. That's why you cannot have access to healthcare in our communities. Because when you go to a clinic, the only thing you're gonna get is pills. There's no nutrition in our communities. Why? Because the farms in which we work in, the food produced there, the primary role of that production is to go and satisfy the needs of the colonizer, to go and fill up the refrigerators of the colonizers. The colonized African people, we don't have food in our refrigerators. You go to, I'm here in Fojwe, President Hyper, it's a store of the white people here. And you go there and you find an African, the only thing we have in our plastic bags, it's just a loaf of bread and a tin of baked beans. And that's it. And then you look at the trolleys that white people fill up there. You have trolleys, a trolley for, one relish, a trolley for starch, a trolley for all of these things. And then that's supposed to be normal. We reject that kind of society. We reject that kind of relationship we have with white people. We're saying that we want to be independent. We want to have self-determination. We want to be to live a dignified and prosperous life in our own labor. That's what we're saying as African people, that we want to be human beings that can govern ourselves. We're not begging for to be accepted in this society. We're not begging for anything for that matter. We demand that we get our own black power. And if our people don't understand that yet, if people think that we're still fighting for a job endlessly, or fighting for water, or fighting for electricity, it's our responsibility as revolutionaries, as freedom fighters, as political organizers, to go out there and build the African People's Socialist Party, build the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. And if you are a European, a white person, okay, Uhuru, okay, yeah. So if you are a European, a white person, just like Comrade Jesse and Chairwoman Penny and other members of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and the African People's Solidarity Committee have done, you can join in, because it's a sinking ship. The colonial ship, it's a sinking ship. That's why there's so much panic in the white community, because we're coming for everything. So just want to salute this program and just say forward with the struggle. So let's join the movement, join the Uhuru movement. Black power, Uhuru. Long live Chairman O'Malley, Uhuru.
Long live Uhuru Director Tafarie. Thank you so much. That was an incredibly powerful call to arms, not only speaking to the African population, but also your call to us, the white people, the settlers, the colonizers, to abandon our allegiance to our own ruling class and abandon the interests of colonialism and fight for African liberation and reparations. So I just want to thank you, Director Tafarie, for that incredibly powerful statement, and salute your leadership and the struggle that you are leading on the ground there in Occupied Azania. And now it's my honor to bring up the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, who will be speaking to us more on how we as white people can and must take a stand in solidarity with the African revolution everywhere that it is unfolding in the world today. Chairwoman Penny Hess. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Jesse. I salute this event, and I want to express my total uncompromising unity with the presentation by African People's Socialist Party South Africa chair, Tafarie Mugeri, and that brilliant presentation that he just made. He is also the director of organization of the African Socialist International for the continent of Africa. I just express my unity for his courageous stand and his tireless work in organizing the African working class to complete the African revolution of the previous era and in the vision and goals of the African People's Socialist Party. I salute Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa of the African Socialist International, who will be joining us shortly, and Julie Eccles, a member of the colonizing nation of Occupied Azania or South Africa, who has joined us today. Really salute you. And I want to reiterate my unity and saluting Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who is our leadership in the African People's Solidarity Committee, and Chairman Omali has fought for the liberation of Africa and African people under the leadership of the African working class for more than 50 years. He has fought for, solved the problems of the revolution, is determined to lead the process that is inevitable in history, that the African revolution will be completed and that the African working class will have power in their hands, and the unification of Africa and the return of all of Africa's stolen wealth, or their stolen labor and resources and minerals, and the right to be free and liberated as a people, of colonized people around the world today. And we stand in unconditional solidarity with the working class, African working class in South Africa and the world, and their resistance and their right to complete the African revolution. We recognize and unite the African people are not the looters. There is no way that we can look at the history of the colonizers and deny that white people are the looters. African people, African workers are taking back what has been stolen from them. I want to say and reiterate, I am the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee. I have the honor of being part of the African People's Solidarity Committee, which is the organization of white people created by the African People's Socialist Party many years ago, 1976, led by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who is also our leader. And I, again, salute his profound leadership. I salute the deputy chair of the African People's Socialist Party, Ona Zane Yeshitela, under whose direct leadership members of the African People's Solidarity Committee work, and all of the heroic leaders and members of the African People's Socialist Party in Africa, the US, the Caribbean, Europe, and elsewhere, that the Solidarity Committee was formed to strategically extend the African Revolution into the white colonizer population, to be a voice for Black power in whiteface, and to fight for reparations to African people, not as charity, but as a stand of returning what was stolen from African people, organized in the process of seizing power in the hands of the African working class in the worldwide African liberation struggle. And I salute all white people who are here today, who have the courage and integrity to engage in these understandings and the worldview of African internationalism or Yeshitelaism, which allows us to adopt the worldview of seeing through the eyes of the African working class, to see the world as it really is and how it got this way, and take responsibility for what it is that we have to do. As Chair Tafarie said, commit class national suicide and join in solidarity with African people and oppressed and colonized peoples on the planet Earth to destroy this parasitic blood-sucking system built at the expense of the majority of humanity. And that in the struggle, as Chairman Omali Yeshitela has informed us and shown us, between the past and the future, this event and this work of the African People's Socialist Party represents the future. the struggle between the colonizer and the colonized. The colonized, it is the critical issue in the world today, and that this struggle represents the future of the planet because the colonized is winning. And from Chairman Omali Yeshitela, whose political theory again is called African internationalism or Yeshitelaism, we can begin as white people, as the colonizer, to begin to see the world as experienced by all those that we have relegated as objects of history, the other, that we can begin to see the world as they experience it, which is the world as it really is. And we can understand that, as Chairman Omali Yeshitela has proven scientifically, that capitalism was born through Europe's assault on Africa, beginning more than 600 years ago, kidnapping and assaulting African human beings, turning them into commodities for sale, trafficking them, shipping them around the world, across the planet, forcing them to labor under hideous conditions, stealing their land, stealing their labor, stealing their minerals and resources, their ideas, their talents and genius for us to be able to live and to have resources. African people had to give their lives and their ability to produce and reproduce. All of that for 600 years has gone for the colonizer to be able to live. And this is where the startup wealth of capitalism came from, as we can see perfectly in South Africa, as the Dutch East and West India companies that initiated the colonization of Southern Africa were instrumental in the building of the capitalist system and were corporations built to dominate the majority of the planet under European colonial domination. And that we understand, as Chairman Omali Yeshitela has taught us, that rape, plunder, enslavement, torture, genocide, slaughter, this is what the colonial domination of Africa is. This is what Europeans have done to African people, or we have done this in the Americas, Asia, the Middle East, all around the world. This is how capitalism was built, and this is how it continues to exist today. And that African people, as Chairman Omali Yeshitela tells us, are colonized everywhere they are, in Africa or wherever they have been forcibly dispersed throughout the world through this colonialism for the benefit of white people. So whether African people are in the continent of Africa, which has been divided up with colonial borders imposed on them so that every European power could share the stolen wealth of African people, or whether African people are in Brazil, the Caribbean, in the United States, Canada, or any place else, or even inside of Europe today, pursuing their stolen resources, African people are colonized. There is no place on the planet where African people are free and liberated. And that African people, as Chair Tafarie and Chairman Omali Yeshitela has said, are colonized for the benefit of white people. And this is what transformed white people in Europe from serfs, transformed feudalism into capitalism, and that this is how all white people everywhere became colonizers and complicit in the violence, rape, and genocide for a piece of the stolen loot. So I also want to say that I understand that because I am a colonizer from the United States, from what is called the United States, and that sometimes white people from Africa, from South Africa, or from Europe will tell us under the leadership of the party that, well, we don't understand white people in South Africa or in some other place. And I want to say that I do understand that, and I do speak for that, because first of all, I am under the leadership of the African working class, the African People's Socialist Party, that taught me, that taught us, that forced us to see this reality, not as an anomaly, but as the norm for colonizers everywhere. We are the same. And I understand what South Africa is for white people, because I am from the place that taught South Africa what apartheid is, that taught the world what genocide is and how to carry it out. And then it taught the world the extremes of the depth of popular colonial violence. I'm talking about colonizer population enthusiastically embracing the role of colonizer, carrying out and even fighting for the right to inflict colonial violence upon the colonized, from scalping the indigenous people, participating in the genocide, to the what's called the lynching, the burning, the torture, the just murder and slaughter of African people, to the rape of African women and the mutilation of indigenous people, on and on and on, that we have carried out inside what is now called the United States and wherever we are. And that Chairman Omali Yeshitela has told us that the world is changing. As Chair Tafarie said, the capitalism is in a crisis because the colonized everywhere are rising up to take back their land, their resources, and their power over their lives and the means of production. So this is an incredibly great period of time for the people on the planet Earth. And for all of those, including the white community, including the colonizers who want to see a new world, who do not want to unite with a role sitting on the pedestal on the backs of African people and oppressed people on the planet Earth. And in terms of the situation in occupied Azania or South Africa, white people in South Africa, according to Wikipedia, are 8.9% of the population, and others say, including members of the African People's Socialist Party, say it's only about 7% of the population, but yet own 80% of the land, 80% of the land, and even a greater percentage of the wealth. South Africa has the greatest wealth gap between the rich and the poor, or the colonizer and the colonized, of any place in the world. Yet African people there are 85% of the population. The majority of African people in South Africa live on less than $70 a month. And that's the max, according to websites about the conditions of poverty in occupied Azania. That's $2 a day max, forced to scrape together life in the colonial economy while white people enjoy the high-tech, high-paid colonizers' economy. That since the ascension of the ANC and Nelson Mandela to power in 1994, in fact, poverty has increased in occupied Azania. It is still occupied today. And the number of people living in what is called the townships, which is incredible, impoverished conditions where the African People's Socialist Party lives and organizes, where people live in the face of mansions, part of white people, often right next door to that, in corrugated tin houses with no water, no electricity, no services. And that since 1994, such places where African people are forced to live has increased from 300 in 1994 to almost 3,000 today. So the poverty is increasing under the current regime. And again, the looting is by the white colonizers. African workers are going into stores to liberate what belongs to them. And I also want to recognize that Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party courageously stood against Mandela and the African National Congress from the very, very beginning. The Burning Spear newspaper, the party's newspaper, put that out, and huge struggles around that, which we could talk about at length at the time, very courageously showed what the ANC government was going to play out, and every word of what Chairman Omali Yeshitela has predicted is true today on the ground in occupied Azania. And that I just, want to say briefly that the history of white settlement, white colonizer settlement in South Africa started in the 1650s with the Dutch East India Company under Jan van Riebeeck, and that the white settler colonizers wiped out the African people who lived there with violence, with terror, and with smallpox, just as the white colonizers did here, consciously bringing smallpox to the indigenous population as part of the genocide. And that the white people from under the Dutch viciously colonized the Africans, stole their land, their minerals, and that it was also the Dutch captured African people from other parts of Africa to enslave them in what is now called South Africa. We know about the incredible resistance of African people in what is called the Zulu Wars, who fought brilliantly and courageously against the British colonizers that came in the 19th century, and Cecil Rhodes, who stole the land, the diamonds and the gold, and viciously enslaved African people in the Kimberley mines, worked them to death, enslaved them on their own land, enabling Cecil Rhodes to die as the richest man on the planet at the time. And he did so because he is an imperialist, was an imperialist ideologue who believed in imperialism, that as a way to stave off civil war in Britain, so to give white workers in London and in UK the ability to have wealth and resources and to participate in sharing the stolen wealth that the ruling class was enjoying. And he very, very ideologically went about colonizing Southern Africa and did everything he could for the entire continent of Africa to be totally colonized by Britain and by colonial powers. We've heard about and understand about what's called the Boer War, what the British called the Gentleman's War, and that Africans were forced to fight that for the British in that war, that 120,000 at least, that's what they admit to, African people were imprisoned in concentration camps. Many, many thousands and tens of thousands died, were killed, were brutally killed and murdered, and that Africans were used and wiped out during all the battles of the Boer War, including the Battle of Mafeking, which was led by the British inventor of the Boy Scouts, which wiped out whole towns of African women and children. And that we also know that apartheid was established in South Africa in 1948 by the National Party. And that was the same year that Israel conquered and colonized the land of the Palestinian people, stole their land, and set up apartheid there, and colonialism. And this apartheid was based on what white people in the US did to African and indigenous people, and continue to colonially dominate African and indigenous people inside the borders of the US today. We know the history and salute the incredible history of African resistance and the African War for Liberation in Southern Africa, the Soweto massacre and the incredible uprising of more than 20,000 young people, young African working class people in a massive protest, which the colonial regime mowed down, injuring and killing hundreds and hundreds of African young people. And that story went around the world and was in a time when the peoples of the world stood uncompromisingly in solidarity with the liberation of Africa and African people. And this was in 1976. We know about the history of the South African Communist Party and how a white man, Joe Slovo, had a slogan, unite, for white workers in South Africa to unite and fight to keep South Africa white. And that he was the one that wrote the charter for South Africa was for all that lived there, essentially uniting with colonialism and the continuation of the colonial domination of white people over the African population. And that we know and salute the history of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, the war for liberation of African people, and that the African People's Socialist Party and Chairman Omali Shatella worked hand in hand with the PAC. And Chairman Omali Shatella actually spoke at their 2002 Congress, electrified hundreds of PAC members who were there at the time with his vision of a liberated Africa and reparations to African people. And the chairman also spoke in the 1980s before the United Nations in representing the PAC, the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania. Today, South Africa has the second largest economy in Africa. And we just say again that all of Africa and all its resources belong to African people led by the African working class. African workers fought and died for the liberation of African people and now are forced to live in ever-growing, quote, townships of suffering, oppression, and despair on their own land. That we unite that in South Africa, as in the United States, the struggle is against colonialism, not racism. It's not about a rainbow nation, which is colonialism by another name. That colonialism is the domination by a foreign and alien state power of a whole people for profit for the colonizers that have the power and life and death over African people. And that colonialism, we're fighting against colonialism, not neoliberalism, which is based on an assumption that capitalism used to be better, that it was a kinder, gentler time in the past, which is not true when we look at our history, and that capitalism was never more just, and just because it's privatized now or more Trump-like or more, quote, fascism. No, capitalism was born this way. Capitalism is in a crisis now due to the resistance of the colonized. So it shows a certain face to white people, but for the colonized, it has always been what white people call fascism when the conditions of colonialism become apparent within the colonizer society. Never say anything about that otherwise. And that for African people, colonial violence is an everyday facet of life, no matter where they are. There is always rule without regard for law. There is always private ownership of the means of production by the white colonizers and the power to force African people to produce life for us, not for themselves. Yes, we owe reparations. All white people owe reparations. And it is in our true interest to join the struggle of African workers to come to power under their leadership, to control Africa and all its resources. This current arrangement, as Chair Tafarie just said, is not viable. Do we want to be the enemies of the majority of the human population forever? We can make our self-criticism work under the party of the African working class, the African People's Socialist Party, where the interests of the African workers are non-negotiable. We can end our self-imposed isolation from the rest of the world based on our stomachs and bank accounts. We can't do this as an individual, though. We must be under the leadership of the African Revolution, organized under its vanguard, the African People's Socialist Party, the only organization fighting for the interests of the African working class everywhere, and for all oppressed and colonized peoples, for Africa to be returned to the hands of African people. The whole system of capitalism, colonialism, and imperialism must be wiped off the face of the earth, even for the planet itself to survive the ravages of this parasitic capitalist system, which is the mode of production of colonialism. And we can join the revolution on the side of the African working class under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party and the African Socialist International, not the colonizers. Reparations under the party's leadership allows us to join the human family, to end our role doing the dirty work as the shock troops of the imperialist ruling class to get something for ourselves. We can be part of the struggle for true peace, true social justice, true socialism, and a system without the oppressors and the oppressed, without the colonizers and the colonized. National suicide, which in fact finds life, true life, in a principled stand as a self-criticism and in relationship to the majority of humanity under the leadership of the African working class. Please join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement at uhurusolidarity.org for white people under the leadership of the African working class, the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Shatella, Chair Tafarie, SD Luwezi, unity through reparations, Uhuru.
Uhuru, Uhuru. Thank you so much, Chairwoman Penny Hess. And I absolutely unite with every word of what you just said, and want to echo your call for white people who are tuning in wherever you're located, whether you're in South Africa or if you're somewhere inside the US or in Europe, to join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. As Chairwoman Penny Hess just so eloquently stated, we cannot do anything as individuals. We must be organized, and we must be organized under the leadership of the Organization of African Workers that is fighting to liberate and unify African people and take back everything that belongs to them. And our role is reparations to African people. So join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. I'll be talking more about that a little bit later today, but I want to just salute that powerful presentation from Chairwoman Penny Hess. And now we are very honored to be joined by Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa, who is the Secretary General of the African Socialist International, the organization that is building the African People's Socialist Party throughout the world. And Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa is a very well-known and brilliant leader and writer in the Burning Spear newspaper, who provides incredible African internationalist analysis all the time. So we're very honored to have this brilliant leader, our leadership from the African People's Socialist Party, Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa, here with us. And okay, SG Luwezi, I'm going to turn it over to you. Uhuru Secretary General.
Comrade JC, thank you so much for this introduction. I just want to salute leadership, Chairman Omali Shatella, for keeping us, bringing us, and keeping us on the road to Black Revolution. I want to salute all the comrades in the Central Committee of African Socialist Party. I know everyone is working hard to complete the Black Revolution. I want to salute the leadership of the APSC, Chairman Penny Hess, and the leader of the USM at this level. I want to salute the director of African Socialist International, Director Tafarie Mugeri, and all the panelists today. We are in a critical time for change. I want to say time for change, time to end parasitic capitalism. I'm sure some of these things have been said already. The bourgeoisie is really busy trying to control the narrative, but we know they can't control the narrative. It's too late, because African internationalism is there. Our party is in South Africa, and our party is all over the world. So they can no longer control the narrative. We want to unite with the struggles of Black people there on the ground. We are not looters. We are the looted, and that has to be clear. We are the ones who have been looted, and our struggle is legitimate. And we need to take back every single piece, everything that we produce. We want it back. Everything is stolen from us. We want it back. Starting with the land question. That's the question that nobody's discussing. Nobody's talking about it, but the African People's Socialist Party is talking about this. What are you looking at in South Africa? You're looking at a crisis of imperialism. The ANC was put in power to stop that crisis, but we can really happily say the ANC has failed to stop the crisis of imperialism, because the crisis comes from the resistance of the colonized people, and the ANC cannot stop us. You can see for yourself, they can't stop us. And so the project, the neo-colonial project has failed. And neocolonialism that's supposed to protect the white settlers will not protect the white settlers. So the revolution cannot be stopped. And that's the significance of the struggle we are a part of. There was a time where the struggle in South Africa was taken personally by every African on the planet, and particularly since the Sharpeville massacre, which really propelled the brutality of settler colonialism in South Africa to the world. And the PAC, under the leadership of Mangaliso Sobukwe, who broke away from the ANC, briefly became the symbols of that struggle. And we united with the PAC because the correctness of their stance on the land question. But our party was born as a party to complete the Black Revolution. It was born as a party of the African working class to complete the Black Revolution. Basically, the struggle to capture Black power, the struggle to unify Africa and the African nation. And we never departed from that. So as much as we welcome the PAC for the correct stance of on the land question, we also struggle with them. And I have an article here. It's South Africa elections show ANC's losing grip on African masses that we printed on June 9th, 2014. And I wrote there, the African People's Socialist Party worked and struggled with the PAC to recognize their class differences with the ANC and to consolidate itself into a revolutionary socialist organization, conscious of itself as an organ of a struggle for power by the African working class, aligned with the poor peasantry from the 1970s up to the end of the apartheid regime. It was our party that struggled with the PAC to reject negotiated settlements that left the white power establishment in power after the formal end of the apartheid regime. So you can see we've been consistent throughout. Not only we criticize the ANC from the very beginning, we also struggle with the PAC, with which we were in unity around the land question. So you can see that. But one thing is clear, this crisis of imperialism, this crisis of neocolonialism, this crisis of Jacob Zuma, crisis of Ramaphosa, Mandela, Thabo Mbeki, this is the crisis. This is the crisis because they are betrayal of the revolution. This is the crisis. And you can see not only what you saw recently on the TV is one manifestation of that, but there are more manifestations of the crisis of neocolonialism. One of them is the ANC shares of the votes decreased by 10% in 2014. We're in 2021, 7 years later on. You can see the decline of ANC is much deeper than it was when I wrote this article. So the ANC shares of the vote decreased in 2014. Zuma was in power. When we look at the cities, for example, they only get 53. They get the share of the vote decreased by 10%. They got 53.63%, and previously they got 63. And you can see that's a sharp decline. And another manifestation of that crisis is that according to the 2011 South African census, the income of white households in South Africa is 6 times higher than the Black ones. That is up from 4 times in 1994. South Africa has the biggest gap between the rich and the poor in the world. Clearly, what you saw, the masses going in the malls, getting food, getting whatever they got, is a manifestation of the crisis of neocolonialism. As this paragraph I just read to you, I think it's worth reading that paragraph one more time. So this coming from the South African census, 2011. The income of white households in South Africa is 6 times higher than the Black ones. So the end of apartheid made the settlers, the colonizers, the occupiers more richer than under the apartheid rule. That is up from 4 times in 1994. So we are in 2014. So 20 years later, you can see the income of white people 6 times bigger. So South Africa has the biggest gap between the rich and the poor in the world. No bourgeois press was telling you this truth, trying to explain to you why South Africa is in crisis. They're just saying since Zuma was incarcerated, we've seen the masses behaving that way. No, it's an accumulation of manifestational crisis that you need to know, you need to be aware of. Around half of the population lives on just over $2 a day, and about 10 million of the people are living on less than $1 a day. About 10 million. That was, in 2014, living on less than $1 a day. Now, another a report from Africa Economic Outlook.org, they reported that at the end of 2010, South Africa traded more with Asia, 36%, or Europe, 27%, than with the rest of Africa, with which they traded only 18%. So South Africa trades more with Asia, with Europe, and with the US, of course, than with Africa. That's the crisis you're looking at. Ramaphosa and the Thabo and the Zuma are in a struggle for influence because they represent two different sectors of parasitic capitalism. Zuma is more with India and China, and Ramaphosa is more with traditional predators, the Anglo-American. And you can see the statistics here reflect that because 36% of trade between Asia and South Africa. That's a lot. And so we can take really a lot of example. Another example I have here, about 71% of all unemployed people in South Africa are between the ages of 15 and 29. So if you're young, you have no future because 71, that's nearly 75%, 3/4 of the youth population is unemployed. And most of them are women. And the majority of which have never had a job in their lives. Half of the people between 15 and 24 are unemployed. Half of the people between 15 and 24 are unemployed, are poor. This is the legacy of Nelson Mandela. This is the legacy of betrayal of the revolution by the ANC, because under the ANC government, there are more millionaires, there are more black millionaires, and there are more white millionaires under apartheid. Ramaphosa is one of them. How can you explain a leader, a trade union leader, can become a millionaire? What kind of a struggle for workers is that? What kind of pay rise for the workers will make a trade union leader a billionaire? That's Ramaphosa for you. And so if Zuma is in court for corruption, Ramaphosa should be there too. Thabo Mbeki should be there too. All of them should be in the court. But this is the bourgeois court. That's on the workers' court. In the workers' court, they all will be standing trial for betrayal of the revolution. And we all know Ramaphosa is a billionaire. And you can't be a billionaire without corruption. And the basis of it is unity of colonialism. And we know the South African government is infected with corruption from the top, with Zuma himself leading the way. Zuma upgraded his house security at the cost of $23 million just to upgrade his house security. That's the amount of money he needed, $23 million. So, of course, it's not the only one. As I say, this is a struggle between two sectors of the African bourgeoisie because they are loyal to foreign interests. So foreign interests are at play. That's what you're looking at in South Africa. Now, there are other things I want to share with you here. You probably haven't heard that before, that the struggle for African peoples, Socialist Party had long ago said that just as the struggle in the US was not the struggle against segregation. That's what we've been saying all along. That's what Chairman Amaz has been saying all along. The struggle in the US or in South Africa has never been against segregation. Our struggle in Occupied Azania was not a struggle against apartheid. Our struggle everywhere we are in the world is a struggle for black power to the African working class and poor peasantry. This is what we're struggling for. This is what we need to win our masses to. This is what we need to win solidarity in South Africa to unite with. And I'm reading basically some of the stuff from the article I just mentioned to you there. That's 2014. Following the Soweto uprising of June 1976, where hundreds were murdered by the police and non-stop struggle through 1994, it was obvious to the long-term thinkers for white imperialism that the white set rulers could no longer rule as they did in the old days. That's why ANC came to power, because the white rulers could no longer rule as in the old days. Why? Because they increased the resistance of the African working class. Now we can confidently conclude that the ANC can no longer as in the old ways between 1994 and now. They can't, because neocolonialism cannot give cover to imperialism anymore. And that's all we understand. And that's really significant. And we also want to reiterate, the ANC did not give the workers the right to vote. We won it through pitched battles with the police and South African army in the street of townships in Soweto, Sharperville, Alexandria, and other places. It was the people's armed struggles from the Azania People Liberation Army, APLA, mass insurrections, and countless workers' strikes that won us the right to vote. It was the sacrifice of our dead and martyrs. That's what people need to understand. Nobody gave us a favor. It was our blood. We shed blood for the right to vote. That's people need to understand that. The ANC was the organization that restricted the development of our national liberation struggle. That's why they released Mandela, so they can restrict our national, they can restrict the national, the development of our national liberation struggle. That's why Mandela said, throw your pangas to the sea. You know, the pangas are the weapons, you know, like machetes and, you know, something like that. You know, spears, you know, depending where you are in Africa, but that's what the pangas are. Making sure it did not develop beyond their petty bourgeois vision and strategic goals, which were summed up in the sellout document known as the Freedom Charter. Remember that? That's why they released Nelson Mandela. That's why they negotiated these deals that put ANC in power. That's basically to stop the developments of the struggle of the poor people to go beyond the petty bourgeois vision and strategic goals. That's really something we need to understand. And we were in South Africa in 2002. He was chairman of Miley Taylor, gave a speech at the Pan-African Congress of Azanians 8th Congress in December 2002 in Umtata, South Africa, when he proclaimed that the ANC has the copyright on selloutism in Azania. So we're not trying to rebuild anything like the ANC or make a better ANC. That's gone. You know, the only option now is really just the struggle for, you know, to complete the Black Revolution. Now that the African petty bourgeoisie in the former ANC has become a part of the imperialist crisis, we must redouble our efforts to help our people understand that the immediate form of imperialism in the midst of this crisis is neocolonialism, white power in the blackface. And nobody did more than the African People's Socialist Party. When we say redouble our effort, we just did that from 1994, even before the negotiations. We worked conferences, international conferences. We wrote about it. We did meetings about it, so that we can win African people to the new position that we need to deepen the struggle to end neocolonialism in white power in the blackface. And this is what's happening now. That's why we are not on the ground under leadership of Chairman Tafarie, Mugeri, and the others leaders of the party. That's what we're doing in South Africa. So neocolonialism is the last stage of imperialism in permanent crisis. We have to accelerate its death now. That's the mission of the Black working class. Accelerate the death of neocolonialism. Imperialism is in a permanent crisis. So we didn't wait last week. You know, these are back as 2014. We already predicted all those things because we are equipped with African internationals, the science of national liberation for African people, and all oppressed people, and all people who want to see an end of parasitic capitalism. They have to unite with African internationalism. And so I want to quickly say those few things because we know people, they don't miss opportunity to ask us questions about Julius Malema, because they think an alternative to ANC is to go for Julius Malema. So in this article I'm just reading from, we also dealt with that. So I'll just take quickly some extra from that. Julius Malema made a name for himself as the ANC youth leader, who united with South Africa President Jacob Zuma in dethroning Thabo Mbeki as the leader of the ANC in 2009. Critics associate Malema with the song Kill the Boers, but it was his continual call for the return of the Azania land to African people is support for Robert Mugabe on a land question in neighboring Zimbabwe and the call to nationalize the mines that gaining support amongst a large section of poor African workers. And he was, of course, expelled from the ANC, and there are many questions to be asked, especially around the political stance of Malema. He said this, and this quote I got from the South African Broadcasting Corporation. The EFF will never do anything to compromise the peace that the late President Nelson Mandela fought for in this country. That's Malema's talking about. What peace he's talking about? That's colonial peace. This peace that protects the status quo. This peace that protects the oppressors. That's peace that protects the ANC and the African petit bourgeoisie. Because the Africans don't need a bourgeois peace. Bourgeois peace means the workers cannot fight. The workers are their back is against the wall. Things like that. The workers need to organize, need to go on the offensive, need to build the African People's Socialist Party on the ground. They need to complete the Black Revolution, so we can create a new economy and things like that. So we can complete the struggle for unification of Africa. So the colonial peace is not good for us. It works only for the oppressors, and the opportunities will work for the oppressors. But that's what Malema is in defense of, and that's really, really important. And we say the African People's Socialist Party, we don't just criticize the ANC as a sellout organization or its leaders as individual sellout. We don't just do that. We criticize them as a social force, as the African petit bourgeoisie. We criticize the entire African neo-colonialist petit bourgeoisie as a social class whose main function is to provide cover for white imperialism to betray the African nation. We don't just say Thabo did this, Thabo make did that, or Zakamu Kuba Zuma did that. We say the African petit bourgeoisie. We say they are, as a social force, is there to betray the revolution. It's a opportunist social force, and Malema cannot say that, and we want the people to understand that. And also, when Malema talks about economic emancipation, it's not the same thing when we say Black workers control of the economy, of the state, of everything. We're saying a new social force need to go to power. Malema doesn't say anything like that. It cannot say anything like that. It cannot say the workers must seize power. It cannot say the African workers must lead the revolution. It cannot say the African workers must unify the African nation. It cannot say the African bourgeoisie must be kicked out of power everywhere in Africa. It doesn't say all those things. It can't say the African workers must lead the struggle for world socialism, where we're going to build a new world based on socialism. And the road to it is through the Black Revolution. It can't say those kind of things. And we want people not to confuse us with Julius Malema. He's a critic of the ANC, and he said the ANC has departed from the Freedom Charter. That's what he said. And the Freedom Charter, anyone who listened to Chairman throughout the decade always said is a sellout document of the sellout organization of the ANC. And we want people to be clear. We are not the EFF, we are not Malema, we are the African People's Socialist Party. And we are African internationalists, and we're fighting for the unification of Africa and the leadership of the African working class. That's why the struggle in South Africa is fundamental to all of us. It's a struggle to advance the African liberation. So I'm just going to take a few excerpts here, and then I'm going to stop. There is an organization called COSATU. Is a part of the Freedom Charter. Is also part of the opportunity leadership in South Africa. They know what's going on. They refer to the question of the land. They call it the redistribution as a social time bomb, because according to a congressional research service report to the U.S. Congress published on January 4th, 2011, in late 2009. That's quotes. officials from the Department of Land Affairs announced that South Africa will not meet its deadline to redistribute 1/3 of farmland by 2014 and will extend the deadline to 2025 due to a shortage of funds needed to buy the remaining land. That is unbelievable. This begs the question, why would you have to buy back your own stolen land? That makes the COSATU say that question is a social time bomb. And I unite with that. I don't unite with COSATU, I unite with that remark. It's a social time bomb. And the role of the revolution is to explode the revolution. The revolution is the means by the workers can have access to life with dignity because we control everything. We control the military, the army. That will be the armies of the workers, the police of the workers, everything under the leadership of the workers, the economy of the working class. We will engage in massive building of houses, of roads, of hospitals, things like that. We will engage in a massive project to industrialize all of Africa because the revolution in South Africa is about industrialization for all of Africa. That's why this is not a question just for Africans living in South Africa. Every black person on the planet must take the question of a revolution as his or her personal business. Is your personal business that the revolution has to be made, and you have to be in a process to support directly or indirectly, or even join the APSC so the revolution can happen. That's what this meeting is about. And if you wait, you want to see a better world, you have to join the USM or the APSC because we are going to destroy colonialism. There is no future for white power. There is no future for white power. We can guarantee that to you. There is no future. It's the past already. In historical time, it's the past. People might not see it today, but if you understand how history works, the ongoing struggle, relentless resistance, struggle of the colonized people everywhere, the bourgeoisie does no reports. You don't see them on your TV. You only see when it's too late. They bring the news to you. But we on the ground, we know every single place in Africa, the masses are on the street. The masses are in resistance. The masses are saying no to this inhuman, degrading world economy based on colonialism. Not just the Africans doing that. The all colonized people of the world are doing the same thing in Venezuela, in Bolivia, in Lebanon. They don't tell you what's going on in Lebanon. The massive crisis is going in Lebanon. The massing down with the old system. They want a new way of doing things. And the African Revolution is the vanguard of that new way of fighting, of doing things, of explaining the world and changing this world. So I will end here. I just want to say thank you so much to the USM for giving me the opportunity to be part of this panel. I know there are a lot of things to say. This document I'm reading to you is got 12 pages. So I only used about 3 pages. So I will stop there. So I appreciate the opportunity. And let's deepen the struggle for Black Revolution.
Uhuru, SG Luwezi, thank you so much. I'm sure people are applauding from wherever they're watching, and I just want to express my profound unity with everything that you just laid out, with the whole brilliant analysis that you just provided, the African internationalist understanding of the class question in Africa and throughout the world, and also how you ended that presentation with that uncompromising call to those of us in the white population to join the organization under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, to join the African People's Solidarity Committee and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, because this is the way that we as the colonizers, as the settlers, as the white oppressor nation population can commit class and national suicide and take a genuine, principled, organized stand, not as individuals, but as part of organization that is fighting for reparations, that is fighting for liberation for Africa and African people everywhere. So I want to applaud and salute that brilliant presentation from Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa, and say what an honor it is to have you with us on this program today, and salute your leadership. And before we open it up for questions and comments from our audience, I'm very happy to bring up now Julie Eccles, who's joining us from South Africa, and who will be giving us a testimony from South Africa on on the need for solidarity with the African liberation struggle. So Uhuru, and thank you so much for joining us, Comrade Julie.
Uhuru, Comrade Jesse, and thank you so much for allowing me to say a few words. I just want to acknowledge and salute the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And I just want to unite very much with the previous three speakers and with the principles of unity with African people throughout the world. So we're in a very difficult situation in South Africa, which has brought to light something which has always been there, but has made it visible for perhaps privileged pockets which have been willfully ignoring the ongoing crisis in South Africa, which has been here for over 400 years since colonialism started. So we have to acknowledge where we are in so-called South Africa, or what we also call Occupied Azania. And that is that while the vast majority of Black African people are living in poverty, the tiny white population, only 1% of white people are living in poverty. There is massive racial inequality, and to pretend that that is not the case is ridiculous. So when we look at the current situation, I prefer to say that we are still living in apartheid, because look around you, what has changed structurally. We are still living in colonialism, and when we talk about colonialism, it's not a thing of the past, it's an ongoing process. So what is colonialism? We see it in what large companies are doing. Ongoing land grabs from poor African communities. We see that people are living without the most basic fundamental human rights, access to water, clean water, land, food, education. And we as white people who are colonizers living within Occupied Azania need to recognize that and not make excuses for it or sweep it under the rug. It is our duty, not only as whites, but also as human beings, to unite with the struggles of poor and working class Africans. And how can we do that? The first thing that we need to do is to change within. So I'm not a leader. I am not I am no one special. I'm just someone who maybe recognizes these things. And so my own faults, my own racism, that is the primary thing that I need to work on. And that is an active process of always learning, always educating ourselves about racism, always educating ourselves about socialism, and always finding practical ways to get involved and finding ways to listen to Black people about their demands and listening to African leaders about what they are saying about what needs to happen, and believing them and listening to them and uniting with that. So that is our duty as white people, and it is an ongoing process, and it is something we need to actively do every day, because if we simply do nothing, then we are on the side of injustice, and we continue to live in the luxury and white privilege that has resulted from all of this injustice. The crisis that we're seeing at the moment has been placed squarely on the shoulders of Black and working class people. And we really need to understand that poverty is a form of violence that has always been inflicted by colonialism onto our fellow human beings who happen to be African. And that has been done by ourselves as colonizers. So comrades, I will keep it short, but thank you so much for this event and for all the work that the African People's Socialist Party is doing and that the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is doing. And we urge everyone, whether Black or white or of whatever race, to unite with the International African Solidarity Movement. And thank you so much, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much, Julie. Uhuru, thank you. Really salute your stand of solidarity with the African People's Socialist Party, and what you just said, and the example that you're fighting to provide to other white people in South Africa through joining in this process of coming under the leadership of the party and fighting to build solidarity with the African liberation struggle. So I really appreciate what you had to contribute to this discussion, and I'm looking forward to the question and answer session. And I will be getting to that in just a moment, at which point we will bring back all of our incredible speakers to engage in the discussion. But before I do that, I would like to make a call for donations, or better yet, I would like to say it is a call for reparations from white people who are tuning into this, or anybody who would like to contribute resources. We are raising reparations today, specifically for the work of the African People's Socialist Party in South Africa, because these incredible and courageous revolutionary freedom fighters, they're on the ground right now as we speak, organizing in many provinces throughout South Africa in the face of incredibly brutal and repressive neo-colonial counterinsurgent violence at the hands of the state there. So we are raising tonight, we want to raise a mere $300 US dollars. And we know that we can raise a lot more than that. But I want to urge anybody who's watching, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, to go to uhurusolidarity.org, UHURU, solidarity.org, and contribute whatever you can. We want to raise $300, and I would like to let you know that already some of our viewers have been chipping away at this goal. So we want to thank Wendy Craig in San Diego, who contributed $50 in reparations towards this goal. Uhuru to Wendy. Jackson Hollingsworth, who's in St. Petersburg, Florida, who put in $15 towards our goal. So Uhuru to Jackson. As well as, Pete Yarashuk, who's also in California, who says, salute the powerful work of the African Socialist International in Azania throughout the continent of Africa and the world. He put in $40. And also Chairwoman Penny Hess, the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, who we heard from earlier today, put in $25. So Uhuru to Chairwoman Penny. So that means we have surpassed $100 already. We have raised, let's see here, quick math, 50, all right, that would be $120 if my quick, maybe a little bit more than that, $130. So we need to raise $170 more dollars. And one way that you can do that is by becoming a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Any resources raised today will go towards this goal. So go to uhurusolidarity.org, donate, you click the big red button that says pay reparations, and put in whatever you can. Let us know in the chat if you are able to contribute. We would love to shout you out. We want to thank Tabby Cat, who pledges $15. Thank you, Uhuru, to Tabby. We want to appreciate all of the people who are tuning in and contributing to this important event today. And again, our goal is to raise $300. I encourage you to become a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Get organized under the leadership of the African Revolution. Get on the road towards committing national suicide, which, as Chairwoman Penny so beautifully said, is actually the pathway to life. To genuine life that is in unity with and solidarity with the rest of humanity and not at their expense. So be like Matthew Nicholas, who is our newest member, who was inspired by this event today. Uhuru to Matthew. And Matthew went to uhurusolidarity.org and he clicked become a member and he became a member. So we're already gaining members from this event today, and that's very exciting. And again, I want to urge people to contribute what you can towards our goal of $300 in reparations. We have raised $145 so far. So that leaves $155 US dollars to go. Thank you to Diane Tournay, who is pledging $25. So we're at $170, 130 left to go. go to uhurusolidarity.org. And we have heard from the leaders, the freedom fighters, the revolutionaries on the ground in Occupied Azania. We've heard from SG Luwezi Kinshasa, Director Tafarie, Chairwoman Penny Hess, and the great statement from Julie as well. This is the future. This is the future that we want to be a part of, that we can be a part of when we join this organization, when we join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. So become a member. You will be invited to an orientation. We will get in touch with you no matter where you're located. We will get in touch with you and work with you to get started as an organizer. We have members in 150 cities throughout the US and in eight countries outside the US. But we want to build organization, and we can't do that without you. So go to uhurusolidarity.org and become a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. We've got 3 simple principles of unity. 1, we are under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. So if you want to be under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, uhurusolidarity.org/join. 2, we organize in the white community for reparations to African people. So if you're ready to take responsibility for the fact that as a colonizer, everything we have comes at the expense of Africa and African people, uhurusolidarity.org/join is the place to go. And number 3, we stand in solidarity with African self-determination. African working class people are leading their own struggle for national liberation and self-determination. And if that strikes a chord with you, which I assume it does because you're here today with us, then uhurusolidarity.org/join is the place for you to go. So join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, pay reparations. We're $130 away from our goal. So please continue to contribute. And we will be able to send these resources immediately at the end of this event to the African People's Socialist Party in Occupied Azania. This is urgent. This is serious. This is real. This is the revolution, and we have to do our part. So that's what I wanted to say, comrades. And now I would like to bring back up all of our speakers, Chairwoman Penny, SG Luwezi, Director Tafarie, Comrade Julie, everyone to come back up. We would love to have an opportunity to take questions and comments. So if you're tuning in, please feel free to put your comments or questions in the chat and we will be able to read from them. I will start off by just appreciating these brilliant presentations. And I just want to say that we have a comment from Paula in Arizona. This is not a question, but if anybody would like to address it, that would be fine. The comment says, South Africa under white settler colonialism, just like Arizona, is the homeland of the Mexican indigenous people, yet are treated like they are illegal on their own land. The indigenous people are placed in concentration camps known as Indian reservations. White people join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. So that's a statement from Paula. Uhuru, I unite with that. I don't know if there's any. Chairwoman Penny, did you want to say something?
Uhuru, well, I wanted to just really appreciate this event, this discussion. I wanted to salute the profound leadership of Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa and Chair Tafarie Mugeri, and the struggle, leadership of Chairman Omali Shatella, just the struggle of the African working class that has the ability and is in motion to change the world, to transform it. And I really want to salute Julie for such a courageous stand of, initiating this and from within the colonizer population of South Africa. And wow, this is great. I unite with the comment by Paula in Arizona. And this event heralds the new world that is coming about. And it's an incredible honor to be under the leadership of this incredible African revolution.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chairwoman Penny. I just wanted to quickly mention before we continue the discussion that Ali Ayello put in another $20 and Erica Hruby also put in $15. So that brought us to $205. And I am going to put in $75 today. So that means we're at $20 to go to reach 300. So if anybody wants to put in that last 20, go right ahead, or we can even surpass our goal today. So again, that's uhurusolidarity.org. And thank you to Ali and Erica. Uhuru. So we don't have any other comments. Definitely want to encourage anyone who's tuning in to put in any comments or questions that you have. But as we start to come to the conclusion of this event, SG Luwezi or Director Tafarie, anything that you wanted to add or contribute during this section?
Uhuru, comrade, I just wanted to ask what about on Facebook, maybe? Perhaps
yes,
could there be?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Uhuru Africa. No, comrade, I just wanted to check if maybe on Facebook, perhaps.
Uhuru. Yes, we have comments moderators that are putting in the questions. But I guess I don't think we've gotten to all of them yet. So I'm actually just now seeing one on Facebook. So thank you, Director Tafarie. This is a question from Mwambi Tengu. Chairwoman Penny spoke on 1948 when South Africa and Israel began implementing apartheid and settler colonialism. What other similar events happened at that time? Uhuru.
Uhuru, I mean, I don't know if a party member wants to say something on that, but I would just say that what dominated the world at that time was the fact that national liberation, as Chairman Omali Shatela has said, that the anti-colonial struggle was the main trend of the whole world, and that China was winning its liberation. India, only a few years, this was only a few years before Cuba, and many other places, India, many other places in the world were defeating imperialism and liberating themselves, at least nominally at this time. And so that what happened, the two events mentioned that took place in 1948 were part of the counterinsurgency imperialism's attempt to save itself from the overwhelming trend in the whole world for colonized peoples to be free and liberated.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chairwoman Penny. Secretary General Luwezi. See you.
Yeah, well, thank you. I didn't hear what Mwambi said, but what we can say, we are in a very historical period. We are in a period where people are struggling for a new world. Anyone who has listened to the chairman more recently, we're talking of a reconfiguration of the world. The world is changing, and the African working class has to make a determination, has to weigh in. What kind of change do we want to see? Because everybody, all the people around the world, particularly the oppressed and colonized people, and those who are fed up with parasitic capitalism, they need a new world. And we, with African internationalism, we saying to everybody, it's not enough to deal with symptoms. It's not even enough to say capitalism is bad. Mm-hmm. We want to change the world, but at its root, at its foundation. This really is a fundamental difference, that the world was built and constructed at the expense of colonized people, and colonialism is the mode of protection that keeps capitalism alive. So if you want to destroy it, you go to its foundation. Today, people can't deny it. South Africa has a new riches, new rich people like the Ramaphosa, the Zuma, the black people who have no interest in a revolution, who are opposed to revolution, who are opposed to the development of national liberation struggles. So we're calling on everybody in Occupied Azania throughout Africa to join the African People's Socialist Party, because all the organizations like the ANC and the others, they are not your organization. We have to be part of our own organization, which means that next time there is a social explosion, we will not just go in the malls, take food because we are hungry. No, we will take the whole thing. We take control, we take power. And people have to be prepared to take power. You can't take power if you're not organized. When you organize, you plan everything. You're waiting for the right occasion, and you jump to the occasion and unleash your force and your plan and take control. That's what it should be in our brains. How can we take control of the minds, of the malls, of the schools, everything, the hospitals, every aspect of the economy of society must come under the rule of the African working class. That's why we say we want bread, but we want power too. You can't just say you're hungry without power. We want bread and peace and black power. We want bread and peace and black power. That's what we want. That's what we should be fighting for. And I call on everybody to join this historical struggle to change the world. The world is changing, but it will change the way we want it if we unite in building the African people, Socialist Party in every country that will create the African Socialist International. So we will have the power to organize and direct nearly 2 billion of masses of black people on the planet and recapture our history, our destiny, more importantly, our future, and change the course of the world. That's basically where we are. So I just want to thank the USM for giving me the opportunity to be part of this historical discussion to define and change the world. Thank you.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Secretary General Luwezi. I just really appreciate what you just stated and your leadership. We have 2 questions that I think are important to bring to this discussion. One is from Kristen Forthen, who is a Uhuru Solidarity Movement member in Spokane, Washington. First of all, Kristen was letting us know that she'll be returning $30 tonight. So we have officially surpassed our goal to raise $300 US reparations. So let's keep it going. Go to uhurusolidarity.org and let's get it up to 400 if we can. So thank you, Kristen, for that. And Kristen's question is for Chairman Tafarie. What kind of victories are you seeing from your work on the ground where you are?
Yeah, Uhuru, thank you, comrade. I think obviously our party, like primarily, it was designed, to advance the interest of the African working class, and these are the people that it's us that you find in the shanties, in the townships, in the squatter camps and whatever. That's where we are mostly concentrated. That's where we've been. That's where we are building the branches right now, and in the communities that we exist, you enter those communities, you see that there is an ideological transformation that has occurred due to our presence, especially amongst the youth, young people, in terms of gaining that self-confidence to say that, first and foremost, national consciousness. We're raising the national consciousness of being Africans, that we are Africans. We are not South Africans, we are Africans. That's one of the things that has happened. And part of being able to see our success and our victory is in how the state responds. Like, for example, one of the biggest issue that as soon as you enter a township that you see is trash, waste everywhere. And we've had some of these projects and they've been visible. And as soon as we start embarking on this and people start getting involved, you see the state coming in and pretending to be solving that problem as well. Just like on yesterday, we had Ramaphosa talking about cleaning and whatever. But the primary thing for him was for people to go and clean the malls that have been ravaged, instead of, prioritizing the fact that Africans live in filth anyway. We live around trash. So we have built, we have 4 branches in 2 of the provinces here, and we have members across the country. And we have actually constituent organizations. INPIDAM is here, and the African National Women's Organization is also building. It is a campaign on collecting baby clothes. So we've been collecting like baby clothes and distributing them to African mothers. So we have been dealing with concrete issues, as well as organizing the people in the townships to become members and to start getting actively involved, being won back to political life. So that is a practical struggle that we are engaged in. Uhuru.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Director Tafarie. Thank you for that. And just really salute the powerful work of the African People's Socialist Party in Occupied Azania and your leadership, as well as other incredible party leaders such as Asa Anpu, who actually sent in the next question. So this is from Asa, who asks, what are the chances of winning non-white people who have parasitically latched on the blood of African people in South Africa joining the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, i.e. Chinese and the East Indians?
Yes.
SG or Director?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I might not respond in terms of that specific question, but just to speak in terms of, like the Indian population in particular, because, look, if you look at the Chinese, initially, even in the mines in South Africa in the 80s, it was a lot of Chinese that were taken from China to come and work here as indentured laborers. You had that, and later on in the sugar plantations in Durban, you had white, like the British, Britain taking Indian people from India and have them to work in the sugar plantations here, and you began to have this concentration of Indian people in Durban, primarily to work in the sugar plantations. But because of colonialism creating all these dynamics within the whole colonial society, you find that a lot of Indian people becoming merchants and petty merchants and so forth within within South Africa, the South African society. But South Africa itself was, this is what we had this conversation earlier actually. South Africa was born like through the attack on African people who are the natives here in South Africa. So you find that even the attitudes and whatever, like that every other population of people have towards African is the one that reflects the fact that the whole society rests upon the oppression, colonial oppression of African people. So right now in one of the communities in Durban called Phoenix, like it's a no-go area apparently for Black people, for African people. So when we get there, we get shot and things like that. So some people referring to this as some kind of racism, that, oh, we knew it, that Indians don't like us and so forth. But we're saying that it's not even about that, that whole ideology of racism or being anti-Black, it reflects the whole social system that it strives, it was born through the attack on African people. So, so I just wanted to say, it's still colonialism, that we're still fighting against colonialism. So that's why we want people to unite around the struggle against colonialism for African people to get our own Black power.
Uhuru.
Yeah, yes, I just want to say a few things. We already know that there is a sharp struggle between sectors of African bourgeoisie, because they're not united in their submission to imperialist bourgeoisie. We can see Ramaphosa is more inclined to China and India. We can see that. As opposed to Ramaphosa, who is more with traditional predators, the English or American, Anglo-Saxon, as the phrase say that. And the question of our presence of Chinese in India has to be seen in our first in the world context. You could see we have Chinese, of course. Director Tafarie mentioned those who were brought in South Africa by the British colonizers as part of also of attacking the African label there. That's what they did at the end of the so-called at the end of the formal slavery that took place in Guyana, Trinidad, there might be Jamaica. The British, to combat the struggle, the resistance of the African people in the Caribbean, which was magnified with the Haitian Revolution. They brought Chinese, they brought Indians there. So this way, they can more or less control the African working class or the African labor force there. So they did the same thing also in Africa. But you also have to take into consideration now you have Chinese who are coming to Africa in two ways. You have the capital from China coming to Africa. Almost in every single country in Africa, Chinese capital is there. They're coming to open up, shops and things like that, but also and mainly to take minerals in Africa, and they bring their own labor force. So you go to the project run by Chinese, you will see a lot of Chinese labor force brought in there, and some of these labor force not going back. So you also have China using Africa as a settler place, exporting its labor force to Africa, and at the same time taking resources from Africa. India, to less extent, India doesn't have yet the same power and dynamism we see coming from China, but Indian capital, you see them in a small companies, you see them throughout every single African country. So the number of Indians also going to Africa, directly from India now is also an increase. On the top of what Director Tafarie said, you already have Indians fought there by the British colonizers. Now the question we have is basically the mission of the African working class. This is the central question. We want a revolution, and our job is not just to win the majority of our African people to black revolution, but our job is also to win genuine unity with all the oppressed people and all the people of the world to destroy parasitic capitalism. So we are also calling to Indians, those who have been living there for a while, and including white people living there. We can also go to North Africa where you have an Arab population there. We're saying that Africa is the homeland of black people. And the relationship we want to build with everybody has to be tied, has to be linked to the mission of the African working class. Everybody in Africa has to accept the mission of the African working class, which is what? Unify Africa and African nations and install the black working class as the ruling class, as the new ruling class. And in that process, all people like Indians, Arabs, just like the Jean-Jacques Dessalines did in Haiti. He told white people like from Poland, people like that, they can also become black by joining, uniting with the revolution of black people there. They cannot join that revolution as white people, but they can join as black people. Just the same way all other people can become black. They can become part of the black nation because that will have no predatory relationship with Africa in any way. No predatory relationship. Because we are building a socialist country, nation where everybody will be according to what Kwame said, everybody according to his needs and everybody according to needs. So there will be nobody owning 10 houses, nobody will be owning the means of production, nobody will be owning the labor forces and things like that. So in that process also we will develop new relationships. Don't forget, Africans also are outside Africa. Africa are in India. Africa are in Asia. African in those places. Malaysia, Africans are there. So, and this is a profound question. So the whole question of building socialism is really also part of this discussion. What is the role of the Indians and others in Africa? Immediately for where we are now, they have to unite the mission of the Black working class to unify Africa and build a Black power state. This is really the starting point. And if they are from oppressed nations, then also they have to be part of the reparation movement. These some of the things we still talking about isn't, it's developing, but this is what I can say to you, Asa, Somali, that's where we are. They have to unite with the mission of the Black working class. There is no doubt about that. Yes, sir.
Uhuru, thank you, Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa, for that very insightful and profound summation as always. And we're coming to the end of our time. We're actually a little bit over, but I think this has been really profound to have this discussion. And before we turn towards our announcements and closing out this event, I just wanted to see if any of our speakers would like to make any closing comments before we take it out.
Can I just say, for this question Asa asked, just Secretary asked is a profound question. We have to make it clear to Indians and Chinese what the oppression of the Indians, if there is oppression of the Indian, it has nothing to do with the Black working class. We are not responsible for the oppression of anybody. If there is a contradiction in the lives of the Indians or Chinese in Africa, it's the British colonizers who created that. We didn't create any oppression for anybody. So that has to be really, really, really clear. That that's why Black power is a revolutionary power. And the power that will solve all contradictions in the world has to be a revolutionary power. And the Black power really gives the people that possibility to unite with the future, to unite with the mission of the African working class. That's just really fundamental. And that's what I want to say. And for me, just in the closing, I have no doubt that the world is changing. The world has changed already, but the change the world wants to see will be incomplete. It will not be the change everybody who wants to see a better world will see. The better world will come only with the successful Black revolution, because this is to turn the page, to put the world, to put human civilization on a new road. Black revolution is to be completed. There is no doubt about it. Africa has to be united. There must be a united Black power state that will have the power over 2 billion people, and this will weigh in every major contradiction we see in the world. In fact, the Black revolution, when successful, will also bring down imperialism everywhere. The United States cannot survive Black power state if Africa is unified. The power of the EU will also collapse. It cannot. All these nations born at the expense of Black people, expense of Africa, cannot survive the Black revolution. And the existing world economy as we know it will also change, because this is what we're talking about, to reconfiguration of the world. We know what China wants. We know what India wants. We know what Russia wants. They're calling for multi-polar world. Black working class is not calling for that. We're calling for the destruction of the foundation of parasitic capitalism, upon which every aspect of the world economy depends on. So it's very different. And for that to be successful, we are calling on you, if you're white, to join the Solidarity Movement, so we can speed up history, because history wants your participation, so we can speed up and free humanity, and and change the world. And that's basically when Chairman say the road socialism is painted black is so true now. So that's what I can say in the closing. So once again, I really, really want to thank the USM for organizing this meeting, this program. It's really just right on time, and it's a part of the crisis of imperialism.
Uhuru. Thank you, Secretary General. Thank you so much. Director Tafarie, or Chairwoman Penny, or any other comments?
Uhuru. Yes, Uhuru, Comrade Jeffrey. I just want to salute you, comrade, for this program, and just salute the USM, and as well as the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omale Stella, as to Luwezi, just profound. And I think this is a principal stand. I'm just looking forward to the consolidation and the building of the USM in South Africa. I know that there's over 4 million white people here in South Africa, and I know that there should be a lot of them out there who are just waiting to hear about this, and then they can join in and just the whole process that Comrade Julie was talking about, removing oneself from the center and being able to see the world as it is. So I know that we are here, we are on the ground. We'll keep fighting for it, fighting to build a party here, fighting to challenge and and overturn South Africa. So just say forward with the revolution, Uhuru.
Forward with the revolution, Uhuru. Thank you. And Julie, I appreciate you for still being here. Anything you wanted to say? You don't have to, but if you would like to, we invite you to.
Thank you so much, Jesse, and thanks everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
We as
go ahead.
Sorry. We as whites need to understand that racism is not only interpersonal. Racism is also structural. And we cannot say that we are anti-racist if we don't give back the land, if we don't do reparations, if we don't do all of the economic and socio-political structures that are needed and that Black people are asking for over and over again. So the role that we can play is that we can support that instead of opposing it, instead of saying, oh, it won't work or anything like that. So that's all I wanted to add in closing. And I also just want to thank you, Jesse, for chairing and for everyone in this movement.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Julie. And Chairwoman Penny Hess.
Uhuru, I just really, this has been incredible. I want to salute the Secretary General Luwezi, Kinshasa, and Director and Chair Tafarie for giving so much leadership today, for coming on to this program. Such an honor, and I want to thank Julie for coming on and taking this stand. That is very, very powerful. I just want to say to white people everywhere, to the colonizers, that it is so beautiful to see this vision when we look at all the cynicism, despair, depression that we see rampant in the white community. Because imperialism is in crisis, we can see this voice of the African working class that has on the ground, that is scientifically working towards coming to power and building a world in which human beings can live, no one at the expense of anybody else ever again. That imperialism has to go. The system of parasitic capitalism that gives to the little tiny minority of the people on the planet Earth the suffering, the theft, the resources of Africans and the majority of humanity has to go forever off the face of this earth. It is in our interest to join this. And I want to really call on white people wherever you are to go to uhurusolidarity.org and become a member today. And let's go forward. We're building in Europe. I want to salute Comrade Lily, who's on from France, and others, and Comrade Julie again. And we're going forward. We're going to build the Uhuru Solidarity Movement every place that colonizers are, under the leadership of the African Revolution, which is the future of this planet, unity through reparations. And Uhuru.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman Penny, for that perfect just wrap up statement there. And I want to salute everybody and thank everybody who spoke today on this incredible event, and salute the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. And also everybody who tuned in from all over the world, including in Occupied Azania, South Africa, to African people who participated, and also to white people, including some who I think Julie invited because they seem to recognize you and based on their comments in the chat. So we appreciate the outreach that was done to get people on board and onto this discussion. And also for people who tuned in from all throughout the US and from Germany and France and other places throughout the world. This was an absolutely urgent discussion, and also to everyone who shared this. This event has now been shared hundreds of times, so don't stop sharing it. We want to continue to get this event out there so people can see it even after it ends in just a few minutes. And finally, I want to thank everyone who donated, who paid reparations today. We raised $310, Uhuru, and that will be sent to the African People's Socialist Party in South Africa that is, as we have mentioned, doing the work to finish the unfinished revolution referenced in the title of this event. So I would like to now just go into our announcements. I want to start off by saying that, you can order a copy of Chairman Omali Yeshitela's latest books, Vanguard, The Advanced Detachment of the African Revolution, and An Uneasy Equilibrium, at burningspearmarketplace.com. I also want to invite people to participate tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time in the US. And you can watch it from wherever you are on Chairman Omali Yeshitela's Facebook page and the Burning Spear TV YouTube channel. Omali Taught Me, the weekly political education series hosted by Chairman Omali Yeshitela every single Sunday at 8 a.m. for 2 hours. That is an absolutely invaluable source of political education that the chairman brings to the people every single week. I also want to let people know that the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and African People's Solidarity Committee participate in a podcast called White Lies Shattered, which features Chairwoman Penny Hess and myself, and is hosted by Uhuru Solidarity Movement's Jamie Simpson. You can check out this podcast at uhurusolidarity.podbean.com or wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple, Spotify, iTunes, whatever. You can also find it on YouTube. And White Lies Shattered is a series of our Reparations in Action podcast that was formed to expose and challenge the distortion of history by the colonial ruling class and reveal the truth about the past, present, and future through the eyes of the African working class. And Wednesday night, July 21st at 7 p.m. Eastern, we will have a special live webinar to raise funds for Black Power 96 FM radio station, the Uhuru Movement's incredible independent African radio station based out of St. Petersburg, Florida. So that's going to be on Uhuru Solidarity Movement's Facebook and YouTube channels, where you are watching this event right now, on Wednesday, July 21st at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And last but not least, I would like to mention that on August 7th and 8th of 2021, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations will be hosting the 12th annual conference virtually to take the struggle forward during this ever-deepening crisis enveloping the US and the colonial capitalist world. The conference will be themed Deepening the Resistance to Police Terror, honoring our political prisoners and prisoners of war, Black community control of the police, which will feature presentations from Black is Back leaders, including the founder and chairman of the Black is Back Coalition, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. So those are some upcoming events. I also want to mention again that you can join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement by going to uhurusolidarity.org and clicking Become a Member. And so that's pretty much the announcements for today. And again, I want to give a deep, profound revolutionary salute and say Uhuru to the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. Resistance to police terror. And I want to close it out by saying victory to the African working class in occupied Azania and worldwide, and unity through reparations.